But yeah, you know, I much prefer the normal 141 viewers right now. That's by far a new record. Thanks for coming out, guys. I wish we were here with better news. 173. Wow. It's not updating as quickly for mine. You know, so honestly, like, I'm not even sure what to say. No, no, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't. I mean, I almost would have preferred if there were no responses. You know, I mean, so let's go over the responses so far. Turn this into a cooking channel. I'm a baker. I much prefer to bake. My wife is the cook. So I much prefer to bake. You know, what's that one on? So, oh. I liked one of the response. If I send you some cookies, will you fix Windwalker? I like these. If Windwalker was a cookie recipe, how would you improve it? That and. You know, that person gets a +1 for me. So, all right. So let's go through the answers. They may still very well be answering questions in theory. In practice, you know that's not happening. So. All right. So let's start with this. Since there's so many people, now would be a great time to say if you like all the stuff that I've done, then support through Patreon and PayPal. Right? 200 people are gonna you know, so we did have a couple donations, you know, rolling in already. So thank you very much for that stuff. But you know, it would certainly make my day a little bit better. And all right, so let's go through the answers here.
Do you want to just stare at my baby?
Okay, so yeah, so I've got to try and get this stuff, get my brain together. You know, my heart is like.
Start with the good ones.
I know. I'm gonna start with the good ones. All right. So, we got 3 responses so far. And I said so far because they did say you know, some of the developers may be hanging around to answer more. So, you know, I'd say never, but. All right. Okay. So basically, one of the questions that I asked was, you know, based on what somebody else had said, you know, that, you know, because of the nerf to the Fist of Fury and all this stuff, basically, once we get the 6-piece bonus, Fist of Fury will be, you know, we'll want to kind of cancel it for a channel. Rising Sun Kick, then your Fist of Fury for as long as you can, and then Rising Sun Kick again. You know, he said, is that something they're aware of and comfortable with? And so Nymox said, situations that come up like this are almost never intended when it's just stopping one DPS button for another DPS button. Channeled spells can be the exception to this. And it's awesome if you make the decision to interrupt the damage ability for utility or healing. When you press, which was a dumb sentence, when you press Fist of Fury, we intend you to let the ability run its course before moving on in your DPS rotation. So this might be something that we see some action based off of. You know, you could kind of say that, you know, Fist of Fury would fit that filler in between Serenity, but they really kind of put a lot of effort and really wanted Fist of Fury to be a major part of Windwalker. So, you know, it's kind of difficult to say, but that answer's relatively fine. I'm not upset at all about that answer. The other one was, you know, our question about consistency. You know, Windwalker has kind of always typically had been a very consistent rotation. You know, to the point where, you know, between pulls and stuff, you know, you could always kind of know that your cooldowns are going to be up in the same way. You kind of almost play it like a rotation. You know, so some of the concern with adding the crit element to the 4-piece and the 2-piece and stuff was that it would be adding an RNG element, and that would be difficult. You know, so they said, you know, we try to be aware of introducing too many extra things into a spec when designing things like a set bonus. It's important. As you stated, that things do flow well between both before you get in a set bonus with 2-piece owning with the 4-piece bonus. While we don't have any plans to suddenly introduce a bunch of new RNG elements or important much-watched procs to Windwalkers currently, it's a very important feedback to give if you feel the spec starts to feel too different to players. Suddenly feels like too many decisions are being made by RNG or decisions being made based on procs or lack of procs. So this, again, I think was a fine answer. You know, and it is one that I responded with, you know, responded to and thanked him for that, because really it was, you know, it was more of the question was more aimed of not as much of a warning or really as a question, you know, but more that, you know, it was always a very consistent spec and now there's some RNG. But because of the buff and the change to the 2-piece and the 4-piece and the switching around and the buffing and blah, 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 you know, they, you know, even though it's RNG, it's more consistent RNG. You know, so again, this, you know, this question was really just fine. So let's just check. You know, before I get to this, let's just check. All right, so now, unfortunately, we get to this. And I don't really know what to make of this. I'm not going to go through reading everything. The question that it was in response to was a question that I was very proud of and personally impressed with myself. You know, thank you very much, Rec on Twitch. I do very much appreciate it. She banged her face or something. You know, so I put a lot of time into this. Sorry. What is happening? You know, so I put a lot of time into this response, and it really was the most important one to me, and I think the community as a whole. You know, so, and it was really about scaling. You know, so I provided a lot of information. Yeah, right. I mean, I am obnoxious. Don't forget that I did include who I am at the top. You know, so, you know, really, this was kind of, that was what was said in the Mage Discord. So I was making a funny. So, heartbreaking. That's the feeling. Heartbreaking. That's the word I was looking for. Heartbreaking. Thank you. That was the word. I actually, and XBO, for the record, I do make very good chocolate chip cookies. Right? My wife can attest, my family can attest. I do make very good chocolate chip cookies. I am well, yeah, we do. We rarely make it past the dough phase, but I do make good chocolate chip cookies. But yeah, so getting Yes, my wife makes good. I mean, you make good like everything else, but so okay. So I included this. You know, I went through and pulled out all of the aggregate data on Warcraft logs for years. I mean, going back to Highmaul to show that you know, in Highmaul, you know, we went up a little bit, and you know, this isn't a really good trend line. You know, Blackrock, we went down a smidge, but then from there, Hellfire, Emerald Nightmare, Emerald Nightmare, Trial of Valor, Trial of Valor, the Nighthold, the Nighthold, the Nighthold. No, those sound effects were important. You know, so I put all of this together with the hope that to show that that consistently Windwalkers have, yeah, my dogs don't like the sound effects. Windwalkers have fallen, and some of these are, you know, are minor. I mean, some of these are big. I mean, 85 down to, you know, 72.5. That's a big gap. You know, Emerald Nightmare 82 down to, you know, 76.5. I mean, these are aggregate scores. They look at kind of how Windwalkers compare to other specs. You know, but I did kind of try to make sure that I was complete. You know, I also included, you know, I made a chart last night and this morning, you know, to show that, you know, in Tomb, Windwalkers, you know, are down here, you know, because people were asking, you know, how come, you know, Windwalkers were really rough at the end of Nighthold, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, I made this to show that even though we were low, we were still within one standard deviation, which still would be considered within the average range. So, in Tomb, however, we're down here, you know, at the 1.6, you know, more than 1.5 standard deviations, which should be outside of the average range and considered below average. Not just, you know, I mean, you have to figure that these specs right here, all of these specs would be considered in the average range. So the top 3 and the bottom 3 would be considered outside of the average range. You know, and I tried to provide all that. I did what I believed was the information that they would probably look at when making tuning differences and provide them that information. So the questions I asked, you know, looking at the available data, do you have plans for Windwalker monks in order to bring them closer to the average? And what are they? And do you have a plan for fixing the overall scaling problem present for Windwalkers? What is it if you do? I added suggestions. You know, adding haste scaling to Touch of Death and Strike of the Windlord, you know, as well as, you know, what it would do. Adding the damage modifier to the Blackout Kick or Blackout Kick. You know, integrating something of, you know. So what do you think of these suggestions? And what we got was what's the word? Disheartening, heartbreaking, frustrating. You know, so basically in a post that I spent several hours on, they got stuck on this question. And not only that, they seem to ignore this part, this first part, and really only focus on this part. You know, so on a question that is essentially huge, you know, and like someone is saying in chat, you're absolutely correct. His response was meant to silence all of us. It was not just meant to me, because really there's nothing specific about Windwalkers in here. There's not even a mention of Windwalkers. You know, basically, you know, what he says is everybody wants to do more damage. You know, I will see if I have time for the scaling follow-up, but that's a lot more abstract and probably technical. And that's what we're asking for. But since the real issue is that a raid tier is starting, and as always, every spec is lobbying hard for the case that they need to do more damage, we wouldn't be totally complete here unless we tried to talk about it a little. So what they did was, in the effort to be complete, they ignored 90% of what I had typed. More than 95%. He, I believe Sigma is a male. You know, he or she, Sigma, and I understand this is a very generic response. This is your response that you have essentially copy and pasted, and you know they're ready to go when someone says, "Why doesn't my class do enough damage? Give me more damage." And they say, "No, this. It's more complicated than that." And the fact that what he thinks is the real issue is that a raid tier is starting and Windwalker says we need more damage, and then responds with all this stuff about class balance and DPS tuning and design judgment, who should be strong, stuff like that. You know, attempts to at some point tell me that, you know, a certain set of data may be in front of us that shows a ranking, but that chart reflects an amalgamation, selection bias, he says in here. You know, the question is not who is doing the most DPS on the chart, but how would it look if any or all of the above factors were changed in a certain way. So this has nothing to do with what I said, with what I put hours of work into this morning and last night. It has nothing to do with it. I mean, anybody who has spent time in Discord knows that I have said multiple times somebody has to be last. Somebody has to be last. If it's Windwalkers, that's okay. But the gap between first and last right now is the problem. I've always said there's no problem being last. The problem is being wiped out, being drastically different from first or even the average. I mean, I didn't even try to compare people, you know, compare us to Affliction right now, which is arguably, not arguably, it's undisputably an outlier. 2.17 standard deviations above the mean, 2.39 standard deviations above the mean. That is way above average. Way above average. If this was a bell curve, they'd be way the hell over here. So, and Windwalkers would be way the hell over here with everybody else in the middle. Can I make a bell curve? But whatever. So, if you want to compare Affliction to Windwalkers, you know, what's 9.66 plus 8.53? You know, 2, 10, 18 equals this plus this. Nope. Oh. Equals negative this plus this. 18%. 18% difference from top to not even bottom. If you want to talk about bottom, you want to talk about survival hunters. I mean, you know, survival hunters, 20.63% behind Affliction. Not only are they 11% off the average, Windwalker is 8.5% off the average. Hunters have another DPS spec, and I hate to bring it up because really it should be irrelevant. But if a hunter wants to play a hunter and they want to DPS, they have options. Windwalker doesn't. So this is what they focused on. This right here. they missed all of this. Okay? Missed, ignored, pushed aside, whatever you want to call it. This information, this data was not counted whatsoever.
I think that was on purpose.
Oh, no. My wife said she thinks it was on purpose. It had to be on purpose.
Do you think they were trying to, like, put you in your place?
Do I think they were trying to put me in their place?
Like,
In my place? I don't know.
were the developers, like...
I mean, yes. No, absolutely. Absolutely. My wife just asked, you know, do I think that they were trying to put me in my place? And the answer is yes. 100% yes. This wall of text is designed to tell me
Mind your own damn business.
to mind my own damn business. Yes. This wall of text is designed to tell me that the data I have provided is not real data. It's fake news.
Alternative facts.
It's alternative facts. Thank you. It is alternative facts. It is fake news. It is selection bias. Like right here, selection bias in what data is being used and examined. I mean, if you watched my stream earlier, I went through looking all this stuff. I didn't have to alter things. You know, the data fell into the point I was trying to make on its own. It wrote itself. And this part is what everyone should be angry about. Nobody likes to be below average. Half of you currently believe you are at this moment, using whatever metric is most important to you. Actually, more than half, because there are many data sets you might look at, and the one that says you need help is the one that sticks in your mind. So the great majority of you that wish class balance were in some way different from how it is at any given point in time, we understand and we hope we can help you do the same. So they want us to understand that this shit is complicated. No shit, it's complicated. But when a spec shows up and is more than a standard deviation and a half below the average, you should not be able to say that this is fake news, that is selection bias, that is looking at a data set that fits what I want it to fit. I will take whatever data they want and I will show them. Sims, they've already said they don't like Sims. You know, because Sims are community created, which I get. I understand why Sims are not something that they want to go towards, because if they let us know that they're paying attention to Sims that are created by the community, then the community will be incentivized to fuck with those Sims and make sure that their spec shows up highest. A long time ago, not that long ago, a certain specific leader of a certain community who shall remain nameless and unidentified was called out for sandbagging their Sims, was messing with the APL, doing incorrect, you know, basically going out of their way so that their spec and their class would appear lower on these Sims, with the hope that Blizzard would see these Sims and would make adjustments on them. And they were called out for this. I'm not even going to say if it was a male or a female. You know, a lot of people will know if you've been around. But I will not confirm nor deny who it is. But, so I understand. Sims, great. Sims are a good tool for us. They let us tweak around. But Blizzard, they need to have their own internal stuff. Something else going on. 275 viewers. This is bananas. People like Angry Babylonius. So thank you. My wife put me back on the, yes guys, there is a delay. When I say a number, you see a different number. So yeah, I get why they don't like Sims. But this is real world data. Okay? I included in this chart you know, you can bump it out. I included in this chart the you know, the amount of parses. The amount of parses. So let's say equals the sum of all of these. All right, so we're talking, and this was as of this morning, 434,260 parses used in this data. Now, I said this earlier, I took statistics 3 times in college. The first time the teacher messed up my grade with another student, so I dropped it because I didn't need to take it then and I had time. And really I had a B+, and she at midterms I had a D, so I dropped it, no big deal. Second time it was at 8 o'clock in the morning, so I wasn't doing that. Third time I passed it, no problem, I got an A. So, but I remember specifically that in order for statistically significant data to be drawn, you want an N, you know, a number, a sample size, a population size to be at least, what is it, 20? 30? 20 or 30, right. So now I could be wrong, but 434,260 seems like enough to be able to draw statistically significant information.
Even my graduate level of research, I only had like 120.
Right. I mean, you know, the tests that I use at work, that I use to diagnose children with speech disorders and qualify them for special education and get them the services that they need, do not have 434,000 samples in a normative study. They might have, what do you figure, 1,000? 1,000 is probably a well-done study. So you're talking 434,000, and this is in a week. It is Friday. This was Friday morning. This just started on Tuesday. 3 days. 3 days. This is real world data. And I went through this last night and I talked. And, you know, there's a lot going on. You know, there's a lot more things that didn't make sense. When I was doing, you know, when I was going through and I was looking at, for example, Hargitan. Hargitan should be a fight that Windwalker should be great at. But here we are at the fucking bottom. You know, and look, we're at the top. No, now we're at the bottom. You know, at the bottom, 819 samples. That's, again, enough. You know, so...
Lily, be careful, you're going to go over that.
Please don't fall.
So, only one of us needs a head injury today.
You know, Hargitan, this should be a Windwalker's great fight. We're at the bottom! Mistress should be Windwalker's great fight. Look at that! Second from the bottom! Desolate Host, I felt super strong on this fight. Look! Third from the bottom!
Hey, babe. Pokemon Go tells me that there's a Lapras in there.
Pokemon Go tells it's that there's a Lapras in the area. We may have to go catch a Lapras. But
I'm not able to raid, though, at my current level.
like, this is data. This is data. This is statistics. This doesn't make sense. Why would Windwalkers be at the bottom? For Hargitan, it is a cleave AoE fight. Why would we be at the bottom for Mistress? Or sorry, second from the bottom for Mistress. It is a cleave AoE fight. We should rock this fight. We don't. We're not rocking the fight. Thank you very much, all of the people who are donating. I'm sorry that I haven't been keeping up. I'm working on getting things set up so I can see more things at once. I've got my iPad for chat right now, so I can't really see when people are donating, but my phone does tell me. So thank you very much for the people who are tossing donations my way. But this, I'm probably going to put this into a video. So, it's almost unbelievable. And I say almost because, as I'm sure you all agree, there's unfortunately a part of this it's totally believable. I mean, I have been playing Windwalker for years now, since a couple weeks into Mists. I have been running the website for going on 2.5 years. I have been writing the guides, moderating Discord, stuff like that for well over 2 years. I've been around. Before all that, I was heavily involved in the community. I've been around. I've seen communication. I've seen what it looks like. But I really had hope for this. I really felt that they were reaching out and showing that they wanted to. They suggested this. People asked for it. They said, yeah, let's do this. This is something that we should do. And I knew it was going to be a lose-lose for them. No one was ever going to be satisfied. You know, even if they gave us some answers, there's no way they were going to be the answers that we wanted. You know, but this answer is not a lose-lose situation. This answer is a fuck you guys situation. This answer is, we hear what you're saying, but we're just going to ignore it on purpose. And I went into this understanding that if they didn't respond, then that's indicative of something. That's indicative that they don't care, you know, whatever. And they're very, buffs may come out of this. I provided them with a lot of data. We may see some buffs later this week, you know, or Tuesday or something going to Mythic. Somebody may say, now hold on a sec, this Babylonius guy, you know, may be onto something. Or, you know what, they might be around talking, you hear this fucking Babs guy and all this shit that he, that he did, what does he know? And then someone else will go, yeah, you know, and someone else is this guy, you know, he thinks they should buff Windwalkers. And you know what we really should do? We should buff Windwalkers. Everybody else is like, you know, going to be like, yeah, what a great idea, Steve. You know, you're such a genius. That Babylonius guy had no idea what he was talking about. Steve, you're the best. Here's a promotion. You know, fuck Steve. Why did I pick Steve? Because it's always fuck Steve. All right. But yeah, so like, and Steve may be Sigma, and Steve may be somebody else. You know, but that's almost like if we get buffs, if tomorrow morning we wake up to huge buffs for Windwalkers, I feel like I'm going to have to say thanks, Steve. Because this response essentially told me to go fuck myself. And it may not have been intended that way, but come on. You know, and I am always... Somebody asked me earlier, how can I always be optimistic? And I say I don't try to be optimistic. I try to just not be negative. I try to just not be pessimistic. And to all the Steves out there, I apologize. I don't know why I selected Steve as the name. But there are some parts of this that just feel personal. And it's a very generic response, a very disconnected response, but it's a response to my questions. So it feels personal. I mean, I spent anywhere between 4 and 8 hours prepping for this AMA between last night and this morning. I spent probably almost a whole hour on this question alone. And what we got was essentially something that they may very well have copy and pasted. They could have a JavaScript or whatever it's called where you press a button. I had one for MMO Champion where I press a button and it copies all this stuff into where they want. They could have this saved on their internal server for, you know, when someone asks for buffs, post them this. Like that's what I feel like we got. We got a disconnected response to probably the most important question I could have possibly... I would have been fine with no other responses to any other questions, as long as they would have taken the time to respond to this question. And they did. But it just seems purposefully antagonistic and dismissive. You know... this part, this section, you know, using whatever metric most important to you. What that means to me, you know, that part, the selection bias up here, what that means to me is, yeah, we see that you did all this work, but fuck your work. Fuck the time that you put in to this. You know, fuck all the data that shows this. Fuck you guys. And I'm not even going to write an article about this. I'm going to post this video. And I hope that this is the generated answer. I hope that this is the answer they post whenever they hear a question like this. Do you have plans for windwalkers in order to bring them up closer to the average? I didn't even ask for us to not be below the average. I just want to be closer to the average. I don't give a shit about being above the average. I don't care for windwalkers to be where affliction is right now, because affliction needs to be nerfed. Balanced druids need to be nerfed. That needs to happen. Shadow probably needs to be nerfed. I'm kind of surprised that sub is this high. But this, I have to hide this because this is just extra data that I don't need and it's bothering me. I'm honestly at a loss. Like I didn't want this stream to get this angry, but as I'm kind of letting it out, I'm getting pretty angry.
Well, it just, honestly, you posted a question like that, and because it's so detailed and because there's so much that came to it, they were probably like, fuck, we have to say something to this, but
right.
What do we say? And that's what you got.
Right. So my wife said, you know, you know, she's a psychologist and or a counselor, you know, technically counselor. You know, you have a psychology.
I have a degree in psychology.
Okay. So, right. So, you know, she said that, you know, what she believes is that I did all this and they were like, damn, we have to respond. And they're like, okay, well, let's just respond with this. You know, but, and I know anger is good but I don't like to be angry.
I'm not trying to teach your daughter.
You know, right. I've got a 1-year-old, you know, who's running around here watching her father be upset. You know, as you can, I'm sure you guys have seen her running around. You know, and I don't want my streams to be based on anger and people to tune in because I'm frustrated and I'm going to spout stuff off, you know, and stuff like that. You know, I try to keep things respectful, but I feel disrespected. You know, I do. I feel that this says one of several things. This either says, we hear what you're saying, and we don't care. It says, we hear what you're saying, you've given us way too much to respond to one thing, so here's something. Or it says, you know, fuck you. You know, for, I don't know, making us look bad, or I mean, I had people whispering me, I had other guide writers, other people in other specs, people on Twitter and stuff message me and say, oh, there's no way they're going to be able to ignore this. And, you know, and I understood, I posted 19 questions about Windwalker, and I understand that not all 19 were going to get answered. I tried to break them up into, you know, three chunks, you know, chunks of 3 questions, stuff like that. You know, and I really wanted, you know, the scaling one to be most important. You know, and it was the last one I posted. So the fact that it made it just here behind this one, which obviously other also important questions, but also this stuff answered down here, you know, in the other one. You know, I would have preferred that they just said nothing. Because then I would have felt that, okay, they saw all this stuff. Maybe it was too much to digest, but they saw it. Now I know that they saw it. Because, I mean, you couldn't, nobody didn't see it. I mean, it blew up all over the Mage Discord, and other people were messaging me, you know, saying, you know, whoa, you know, you went hard, you know, and stuff like that. Like, this, I made it so that it could not be ignored. Windwalkers were not going to be ignored again. We I wonder if they're talking about my... Okay, no. It says, yeah. You know, Windwalkers have posted hundreds of posts in threads asking for communication and received nothing. I saw this as an opportunity that I was not going to squander. I spent a good chunk of last night and pretty much the entire morning and early afternoon working on this. So to get this response is infuriating. You know, and, you know, like I said earlier, you know, and Slenderman, you pointed it out, you know, this was a lose-lose situation for them, and I applaud them for reaching out and at least giving it a try. You know, I haven't looked to see, you know, what didn't get responded to. You know, so let's see. So Windwalkers, we got 3. You know, I mean, is there anything? You know, I mean, did they get ignored too? Did Demon Hunters get any responses? Other than this one, telling that they're not going to respond to all of our stuff? Like, well, they posted something, you know, thank you for compiling all these things, but we're going to reply to them individually, stuff like that. Like, which I get. You know, but I don't see whether Demon Hunters got any... Oh, okay, there. So they got an answer to their 17 questions. Like, I understand this was... Like I said, this was a lose-lose. They were not going to be able to satisfy everyone, and I understand that. And I applaud their effort. But nobody went in, you know, thinking that they were going to answer all of our questions. I had hope, you know, and all that stuff. And I may very well go to their official forums and repost all of these questions, you know, and say, hey, you know, I saw you guys missed it. You know, clearly you missed my... oh, yeah, there's a... Thank you, Hoppy. Yeah, so Monk's got those... Yeah, okay. Well, I'm not going to worry. Oh, Miss Weavers, you guys did get some? Maybe? God, this is a disaster disastrously formatted. But yeah, so... I understand it was a lose-lose. They did their best, you know, but I may very well take the questions and put them on their forums and say, hey, you know, obviously, you know, I understand you couldn't get to all of these, but you seem to miss it. Especially, you kind of missed the actual scaling part of my scaling question. You know, so could you, you know, potentially, and if anybody's watching it, I'll do that. You know, it'd be much easier for me to do it rather than you guys to post my questions again. You know, but I will get to that. You know, but I mean, I don't know. You know, it's difficult to say whether stuff will come out of this. You know, all of this stuff is up here for them to see. At some point, they had to have read it or bookmarked it or whatever. I do not believe that they could be so condescending and so arrogant to just glance over it. You know, I don't want to believe that. I don't want to believe that they could look at all this and go, and just answer this question. I don't want to believe that. It may very well be the truth, but I don't want to believe that. And mostly because I put a lot of work into it, and I would be really heartbroken if it was true that they just ignored this. But the point of me doing all of this work is that it cannot be ignored. There's too much here. So I'll repost it. I'm gonna write an article, you know, about it, or at least just write an article and put, you know, this stream up there. You know, how long have I been streaming? Yeah, so I mean, it's gonna be a lot. But you know, so I tried, guys. You know, I mean, I really, genuinely made an attempt. You know, to get us the answers that we've wanted for a long time. You know, and you know, somebody messaged me shortly into it, and they said, you know, that pointed out that I have posted so much that they may very well, you know, do this in a longer thread, you know, stuff like that. So there is still a chance for more feedback and stuff like that. I'm finding it hard to feel hopeful about it. Windwalker is still a lot of fun. It is still technically viable, but without buffs, I can't say it's going to be competitive. And based on, you know, the first couple days. Hi.
Cheer everybody up. I'm gonna
say hi.
Cheer babies up. Come on.
Here, Lily, you can look at the baby. There, say hi. There, okay. You know, so there's still a chance. But, you know, honestly, I don't know. I don't know really what the answer is. I don't know, you know, what to go from here. You know, I did my best. You know, I know that most of you guys appreciate the stuff that I did. You know, certainly you all need to appreciate the amount of work that my wife did in terms of watching my daughter all this morning and last night. You know, my wife is the real MVP of this, and stuff like that. So, thank you very much to her for watching my daughter so that I could put all this stuff together. And like I said, you know, kind of cue the independence. Oh, she's leaning back into me. Independence Day speech.
Hey, babe. Did you tell them that you rewarded me by giving them a head to the drum?
No. Yeah, so this will be the end of not the stream, but at least the video, and all that stuff. This is kind of, you know, this is kind of what I feel like right now. Is my hair sticking up? Oh, her hair's sticking up.
Mankind, that word should have new meaning for all of us today. We can't be consumed by our petty differences anymore. We will be united in our
Oh, turn it up. Sorry.
Today is the 4th of July. And you will
Let's go back a little bit.
word should have new meaning. We'll be launching the largest aerial battle in the history of mankind. Mankind, that word should have new meaning for all of us today. We can't be consumed by our petty differences anymore. We will be united in our common interest. Perhaps it's fate that today is the 4th of July.
She needs a diaper change.
And you will once again be fighting for our freedom. Not from tyranny, oppression, or persecution, but from annihilation. We're fighting for our right to live, to exist.
I'm gonna write this up and adapt
should
it
we
for
win the
Windwalkers.
day, The 4th of July will no longer be known as an American holiday, but as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.
All right. So that's where I'll at least clip this. You know, so thank you guys very much for watching. You know, we're at 400 or so. 400 or so people watching. So thank you very much. I'm going to put all this stuff in a post on their forum. So stick around if you want to watch that. Feel free to support me and Peak of Serenity through Patreon and PayPal. All that stuff, please. Whoa, hey now. There you go. You know, do so. Donate and stuff like that. And, you know, so, yeah. That concludes the Angry Rant portion of today's stream. So...